I I'll say this. As entrepreneur in church, I see the business of church not being maximized and utilized how I would as an entrepreneur. There's so many instances where I see an opportunity for a church organization or a congregation to utilize something that would generate a significant amount of income and create jobs for those that are in their congregants or those in the community, that it's not being done.
There's so
I
much
actually had
good.
a proposal. What's that?
There's so much good that a church can do in their community.
Yo, I put together, this was a few years ago. I put together, this was pre-COVID. I put together a full-on business plan for a particular congregation, for use of a particular facility to impact the community. And I had projections up to 3 years. So at the 3-year mark, this venture would generate over 6 figures in gross revenue and high 5 figures in net profit. That means that's money that you could take and put it back into the organization to help pay for salaries, help pay for other ventures. Net. I'm talking about high 5 figures. I'm not talking about $50,000. I'm not talking
Not
about
to mention the fact that it's actually going to
$70,000.
serve the people that you're trying to reach.
Exactly. And I didn't even take into consideration that being in that community and bringing people into your place, you're going to naturally have a couple of people come to attend to see what else you're all about. If you're operating this at a level of excellence, then they're going to be like, oh man, let me check them out. And then you'll have an opportunity to minister to them, right? Or maybe crisis hits their family and they've been coming here for a certain reason that is unrelated, but they know you in your top 3, what I keep talking about, top 3 in their mind for that vertical. Oh, that church. Let me go there. So, bro, that proposal, I asked, hey, can I come and present the proposal that I wrote to the board, to those decision makers? I wasn't given an opportunity to present it, and it went nowhere. But 4 or 5 years later, that is still being underutilized. But it has a cost with it, but it's not utilized. And I'm like, if I'm an entrepreneur, bro,
And
I'm looking to maximize every space.
Those same decision makers are still complaining about their lack of money or their lack of resources.
Hello, somebody. Opportunity comes in work clothes. Like, bro, it's going to take work, but you could create something that not only brings in the community, but brings in money, and people feel like, well, I'm getting something for my money. And it's a place for families.
And let me just address. I'm gonna address the comment section one time
One time
right
for the
now.
one time.
All y'all in the comment section getting mad at the criticism, and it is criticism from folks who know.
Yeah,
we're not your enemy, fam. We're not your enemy.
Yeah,
you should be glad that somebody cares.
Somebody's saying,
because a lot of people don't.
Yeah,
the enemy is not those that are upset; it's those that don't care.
Yeah,
and there have been a lot of people that have been lagged to sleep.
Yeah,
because the church refuses to do anything that to actually do what they're called to do, which is to reach people.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
That's all I'm gonna say.
Hey, this was something I learned about, and this is that when the church had the most power to influence was when it was seen as a community center.
Yeah.
Right? So if we're not a center where the community gathers, then how are we going to influence the community with the people that come here to worship? I will tell you, most congregants aren't the influential folks in their sphere. Like,
yeah,
that's everywhere. So,
and we're living in a time that's looking for.
Go ahead.
The world, like the world, is looking for leadership.
Yes.
Right? There's a huge void of leadership, especially in the Black community, in everywhere. People are looking for real leaders. And I heard someone say that the last time that the church really had a huge impact was with Martin Luther King Jr. Mm-hmm. That was like the last time that the church really was seen as a leader. Man, that was 1968.
Yeah.
So it's been
and even then, some churches didn't like what he was doing. So that's what I'm saying. They ain't gonna have to like this, Larry, but they're gonna take it. So I haven't had a chance to attend, but I saw this was a few years ago. Somebody planted a church and said the Church for Entrepreneurs. I was like, I want to go there. It was on somebody's bumper sticker. I was like, whoa, because an entrepreneur doesn't think the same way as the regular person thinks. They think of, okay, how can we build some systems in this that will facilitate assimilation? How can we build some systems that will generate income? How can we build some systems that will automate giving? How can we build some systems that could just bring this whole organization to another level? Now, spiritually, like, rock on, preach, teach, develop. But another study said that no person will join a church that has a facility that is worse than their own at home. They're not going to bring their kids to a facility that's worse than what the kids have at home. They want it to be better or equal to what they have at home. And there's churches that have gone away from having separate time for the kids because those adult volunteers don't ever get a chance to get ministered to. So they're like, oh man, those adult volunteers are complaining. So now we're going to do away with a lot of Sundays where we would have children's church or youth church or whatever. We're going to do away with that because we need those people to get refueled instead of having a larger pool of teachers and developing a system where, okay, you teach for 2 weeks, you teach for 2 weeks, you teach for 2 weeks, and create a rotation of 4 or 5 people that will teach. And the resource of a parent coming in saying, hey, I could drop my kid off and they could have fun and have a great experience with church. And I could be impacted and motivated and equipped for my week. And we both leave and go home feeling good about the hour and a half, 2 hours, sometimes 3 hours that we spent in church. But like my kids, when they go, they're like, because they're sitting on the pew next to me.
Yeah.
They don't want to go. And I see a bunch of kids just coming in, sitting on the pew on their phones. I'm like, bro, come on.
I was just in church yesterday, and they didn't have children's church, so all the kids are in there asleep.
Yeah. I'm like, come on. Come on, bro. Like you have to develop that, and you have to make that important, because to some people that's important. Young families, that's very important.
You can't look at, guys, even if you don't have to listen to us, but there's people that have ideas and have things that can contribute to make things better, but you
Yes.
have to slay your own ego. Like, I feel like it's the ego of the leader that does not want to be, it's like, okay, because I have this authority, right? I don't want to listen to nobody. And you shouldn't tell me anything because who are you? I've been doing this for God. Okay. And it's that ego, fam. Like, why do you have to have such a big ego? Like, why is it that you have to be in control of everything? Like, let other people speak into the situation because they see things that you don't see. And because of your ego, that's the reason why a lot of people don't want to come to your church.
And I think part of it has to do with hurt too. Part of it's ego.
Yeah.
I think part of it's ego and part of it's hurt. Because I have no doubt, because I've experienced as an entrepreneur that somewhere along the way they trusted somebody, right? That person misused, abused their trust, or did something that they didn't deem cool, and maybe that person left them on bad terms or something like that. So
Yeah.
now they are reluctant to let go of the reins because they are in fear that whoever I allow to take the reins will operate in the same way and will then leave me to rebuild again. And I don't have the energy nor the time to rebuild again. If this person was to step away without my blessing or under other circumstances and start their own work. So I think part of it is ego and part of it is hurt and fear. Like, bro, if this person proves to be a better operator, he might not be a better preacher. He might not be a better at some other things, but if he's a better operator than me and at doing X, Y, and Z, and he sees that it's coming to an end of his level of impact and he wants to continue to make impact, he might look to go elsewhere. And I think it was Jakes that said you have to sometimes choose between loyalty versus competency. And a very competent individual isn't going to necessarily be the most loyal because their skill set works everywhere.
Yep.
Just like the gospel works everywhere, and they say that your gift will make room for you, their skill set works everywhere. Like my skill set in my business could work in a church.
Yeah.
Your skill set in your business has worked in a church, right? So having that can breed fear, and because of the fear, then I want to pull on the reins a lot more and not allow somebody to take, the authority. I'll delegate tasks, but I won't delegate authority.
I mean, so that means a lot of what we're talking about to entrepreneurs really applies to pastors. Like, you have to understand what your unique value is in the marketplace for wherever you're at. You have to be able to build in a way. The worst thing that you can be is an insecure leader. Woo. Because while you're protecting whatever little bit of ministry you have left, you're also blocking whatever potential ministry you can have and whatever potential impact that you can have. So you have to deal with that insecurity. And then you got to so that means you actually have to practice what you preach. Yeah. If folks hurt you, you got to forgive them, fam. And I have to check my heart too, bro. Like, I know or we could tell ourselves that we've forgiven someone, but that doesn't necessarily always mean that we have, right? And that poison of unforgiveness, it hinders certain opportunities because now you're hurt, and hurt people hurt people. Yeah. And you're hurt, and you don't realize that you're damaging other people with your hurt. The other people are being hurt because you are now inflicting what's going on inside of you on the people that you're leading, and it's just creating more havoc instead of actually dealing with that, getting rid of that insecurity, and then finding whatever voice you have. Because if God opened up a door to do it before, even if it fails, God can open up another door. Entrepreneurs fail all the time.
Yes.
But we're forced to have to get up and figure it out
fatal.
again.
Yeah.
You can't just say, oh man, all these members left. Now I don't know how I'm going to get. No, just like an entrepreneur has to get up and do it again, you have to do that again as a pastor. You're no different. You don't have, like, you're not so great and mighty. And that's the thing. That's why it gets so weird. You start thinking like, oh man, I'm God's this and I'm God's that. And you know, everybody's called to me and everyone's called under my ministry and everybody's this and everybody's that. Like, dude, no, they're not. You're not. You are not that big of a deal. Like, when you die, someone else, like, you're God, like, there's going to be somebody else. There's people who are better than you. There are people who are better than you, who are going to do a better job than you.
Yeah.
Well, you're like, oh, well, they're not really saved. No, find the person there's a person who is saved, like you say, who's better than you, who does a better job. So stop. Get over yourself.
And it goes back to what we talked about a few episodes ago about that delusion. Sometimes that delusion could take you further than you should go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You don't want to let that delusion get you too
caught up. You really believe that. You know what I mean? You really believe that what you got is just, that's it. You feel me? And it took that to get you to where you're at. And sometimes it's tough to
But see, no, here's the thing though. Here's where I would say that it's different. With entrepreneurs, we're the only one caught up with that delusion. Yeah. So our wives aren't caught up in that delusion. They know we ain't all that. No one else is caught up. But when you have a whole congregation caught up in that delusion,
fam,
that y'all really, y'all all that, huh? We all got to come. We got to check in with you before we get into the kingdom. Like, what, bro?
Yeah, I didn't hear, because I've been to a few different churches. I've grown in one church and I served in another church. I've been around the block a couple times. So, and I know as we get older, and this could apply to entrepreneurs too, there comes a question of succession. And a lot of times it gets done wrong.
Most of the time.
And that's in business and in church. We do it wrong. And we'll give it to the most loyal and not necessarily the most qualified or the competent. We'll give it to another family member. We'll pass it on to our sons and our daughters, when in actuality that was never their passion. They saw you do it, and some of them just, they don't like it or they're not passionate about it, right? So I say that to say, when you see that you're closer to the end than the beginning, there's a higher level of fear, especially if your expenses and overhead right now is a lot more than it was in the beginning. So now, when I used to have to be able to cover everything with 2 clients a month, now I have to get 10, 15 clients a month to be able to keep the ship afloat. Yeah. So the pressure's on now. The pressure's higher than it's been. So I if I allow myself, I can operate more out of fear now. And every customer is a must have. Like, I can't let one slip through the crack because I need 15 to be able to survive. And I think in church, that could mean, hey, if I give someone enough power and enough influence that they could take and split my congregation up. I don't have that. I don't have another 10 years to build it back up.
Most pastors, they're not set up to retire. They have no retirement. They don't have anything, like, they haven't really built for the future. And it's not because, a church is so much different than any other business. It's just because they didn't like and I give grace too. Like a lot of churches, a lot of pastors, when they got started, there was not a lot of resources available for churches and showing them how to do like some of the business aspects. So like ignorance isn't the issue. It's the fact that you now, a lot of these things are coming up to you and you're recognizing them now, but you still refuse to really acknowledge it. Like you're not acknowledging reality. And that's one of the first jobs of a leader is to define reality. And
Yeah.
and if you can't define reality, then a lot of people are just gonna be like, well, it don't look like we quite understand where this ship is sailing towards, but it doesn't look like it's sailing anywhere good. And it just, at the end of the day, it's humility, man. Like as entrepreneurs, we understand that we need coaching and mentoring and consulting in areas that we lack in order to go to the next level. Pastors need that too, right? And
It's
they have to be
lonely.
humble enough.
It's lonely as a pastor. It's lonely as a leader, but it could be very lonely as a pastor, because I think it's becoming less of that now. But when I was growing up, it was, you had to be a almost perfect being. Like you couldn't admit that you and your wife had an argument this week, right? You couldn't admit that you saw a billboard for a plastic surgery place and them things were thanging. and you had to put your mind back in the right perspective, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I make light of it, but it's very lonely to have to live this perfect life. So I had this week on Sunday, whenever we release this, but it may be a little while ago by now. But I lost one of my mentees, and he had an effervescent personality, bro. A gregarious, like his smile was infectious. Like this dude could captivate a room when he walked in.
Mm-hmm.
But he struggled internally and didn't let anybody know.
Mm.
And he was looking for escapes. And I didn't know, because we don't live in the same place anymore, and we don't talk. We didn't talk regularly for years, because he was an adult. He started his life, and I say that to say it's really lonely. And pastors, leaders, people that typically add energy when they come into a room, a lot of times they're drained.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not getting filled up. They're not getting a mentor. They're not getting a coach, and they're just drained, and they're going to other things to refuel them. Drugs, alcohol, illicit relationships, all these things. I say that to say, bro, find somebody that you could trust with your secrets, with your pain, with your trouble. Because,
or just people who can help you.
Yeah.
Whatever you're struggling with.
And pastors, we know you, like, bro, I know it hurts when you hear 20 people left and went to the church across the street. And I know you got to be questioning, like, well, is it something that I did? Like,
and it is heavy because you're dealing with relationships, and a pastoral to member relationship is very difficult. And especially if you've invested a lot of time, it's challenging. Gosh, it's challenging. I've had several, relationship with people that you're mentoring or you're discipling, and it's very heavy. And I empathize with that. But at the same time, the same way that we as entrepreneurs have to figure it out. And when I say figure it out, that doesn't mean take shortcuts. That means do the right type of work, building the relationship, making sure your sermon is good, doing the right things, the best practices, like all of these things. Like you have to do that in the same way that an entrepreneur has to figure it out. Like it's not easy, but it's still something that if you put the work in, the same way that what we reap in entrepreneurship will whatever we sow, we're gonna reap. It's the same thing with the ministry. Like if you sow the right things, you're gonna reap. And if you're really called, if you really called,
some just got up and went.
If you're called, God's not gonna put you in nothing that you can't handle. He's not.
Yeah.
Like if you're called to it, hey, we got it. Like, and that's the part. Like when you're dealing with an entrepreneur, like we're like, we're not going. We can't sit. We're not built to sympathize like that. Like we're not gonna be a pity party. Like we just like, yo, I had to figure it out. You got to figure it out.
What are we gonna do?
That's what it is. Like I think that's a big reason why there's a lot more women in church than men.
Oh boy, we could tackle that, boy. Oh,
we ain't going there. We're already 20 minutes over. We're already 20.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. It takes a special type of leader to lead men, because men be bucking. You ain't just gonna.
You can't hoop a man. You ain't just gonna do hoop.
The two Wachusi.
We paying attention to what you're saying. We paying attention to what you're doing. We paying attention to all that. We need to make sure you legit.
We already don't like you from the jump. Like most men come in like, oh, okay. Okay.
And to be honest, a lot of the men who come to church, this is honest. If they're married, they're coming because they're bringing their wife and their kids.
Oh yeah, for family, bro. I had one of my mentors at the time tell me that is why he goes to church. It's because he wants his family to be raised in church and having that faith background. That's it. And when his kids got older, he got to go less and less, and now he barely goes. He's an SMO.
And then if you're single, you in there scoping.
What is it? It's what, one guy for every 8 women in church or something crazy like that. That's crazy. And that's why some of these creeps come in there doing, just running through, doing the most,
sliding through,
selling lies. Saying, baby, one more time. And they're getting away with it scot-free because, hey, we're veiled in secrecy.
And a lot of them become preachers.
Hello, somebody. Preachers, deacons. Like,
because they are great communicators.
Because guess what? I ain't going to tell you such and such knocked me down. Because then that'll look bad on me. So before it gets out, he already did 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 11 of them. And now, by then, he already done ran through. So what now?
And guys, we know that. We know that because we know ourselves. And we know we can tell.
That dude ain't no good.
We can tell. We know when homeboy shows up. We're like, yo, he is in here scoping. And we know guys that have actually ran through several and that we didn't even know. We were like, dang. Bro was
what you doing? What are you doing?
That's if you could be around dudes and get away with that, and we don't, you skilled. You've done this before.
And it's because of the veil or the need to feel like you're perfect. There's a lot of mess that goes unexposed. If it was a safe space for me to expose my frailty and my failings, then dude might have only been able to get to 1 or 2 before we're like, hey, bro, you gotta get your struggle under control. Or everybody knows, hey, that's this person's struggle. So they're okay. Nah, we ain't, Keep him at arm's length.
Or if you understand who your audience is and you have enough confidence in your own ability, then you can call them out. Be like, hey, fam, you got to bounce.
Yeah.
But like when you're so committed to having everybody up in there because you need everybody in order to pay the bills, man, we ain't about to go here today. So
go there, just a touch, just touch it, just a little bit.
You can if you are so desperate for every dime that goes on that plate that you're willing to let homeboy run through 10, 25 women up in your church. Bro, we can't be doing that.
Can't, won't, shouldn't, but it happens, and I think the major part of it is that feeling of wanting to present that you're perfect. No, we're striving to perfection,
and it's not to say, and it does not mean that you should not have a standard. Right? As a pastor, you should have a standard because you are presenting a level of morality that you're wanting other people to ascribe to. Yes, you, the pastor, needs to be on a certain level when it comes to certain things. Like, I don't need to be worrying about my pastor hitting on my wife. I don't need to be worrying about that.
Facts.
Like, I don't need, or God forbid, or even worse, because I got my kids in here too. Like, dude, I am not trying to go to jail.
Yeah.
So you need to hold yourself to a higher standard. But you got to understand the people that are coming up underneath you. They're not all gonna be on that level.
Yeah.
That they came here because they're looking for game. They want game from you on how to do it.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, man. I mean, those are some of the pros and some of the cons. I think we touched on a lot of stuff that kind of gives our audience kind of a little peek on how the mind of an entrepreneur works in the church space.
So obviously, we understand that church has a lot of benefits, lot of benefits for the entrepreneur. But those two takes that pretty much covered so much of this podcast. Time and money. And money. Those are the areas, like, if the church just addressed those areas, it would be, entrepreneurs would be flooding in there.
Yeah.
You gotta handle those things. And I'm sure we'll discuss more of those in later pod. But I think we have done enough. We went
half an hour over our time because we in the space. I'll speak for myself. I love church done well.
Yeah,
I love it. When I say I love it, I love it. I love it. But I also know the pain and the brokenness that can happen when it's not done well.
And I love Jesus.
Oh yeah,
I love Jesus.
Come on, man. How you gonna one up me? Yes, I love Jesus.
But we love Jesus.
We love Jesus. But having a great home church it's
nothing quite like words can't describe what church done well can do for people in their life.
It's oh my gosh. It's like coming in from the rain into a warm blanket hug. Somebody that you, whether it's your mom, your grandma, your brother, somebody that you love, welcoming you home with a warm blanket after coming from a cold rain and just embrace you, bro. That's what to me, like, good church is. It's just a place that welcomes you and warms you and that you could be vulnerable and still feel safe.